Hello and welcome to another episode of The Mark Medley Show. Thank you so much. As always, and I do mean always, a pleasure to share with you on this platform. And today's episode is the process of life. And what I mean by the process of life is, as we all know, if we've lived any modicum of time whatsoever, that we're going to go through ups, we're going to go through downs, we're going to go through good times, we're going to go through bad times, we're going to go through some wonderful celebratory times, and then we're going to have some of the saddest, weirdest moments of our life. But you know what? At the end of the day, we have to trust the process. We have to trust that at the end, everything is going to be okay. That it's going to work out in the end. And as they say, if it hasn't worked out, that means it's not the end yet. So we're going to be talking this morning about different things, or this afternoon or evening or wherever you're listening to it. We're going to be talking about a few things in terms of things that occur in life. I know for me, and I've shared this in many instances, my life changed in the summer of 2021. I'm still working my way through that. And I just do have to trust the process that whatever has happened for my greater good. That whatever has happened for my destiny. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And actually, the thought came from a reading from Iyanla Vanzant's book, Until Today, where she talks about the process of life, learning to live and the process of life. So we're going to talk about that. Make sure you stay tuned, you stay locked on to the Mark Medley Show. And I promise you, I'll give you something to think about. You may agree, you may disagree, but it will be something to think about. As that song used to say, things that make you go, Well, if I can get you to do that here on the Mark Medley Show, then I will have done, in the words of Brian Courtney Wilson, a great work.
Iyanla Vanzant, Until Today, January the 14th. See, half of January is already gone. We just had New Year's Day, just singing Auld Lang Syne and the ball dropping and the honeymooner marathons and everything else that comes along with watch night services, everything else that comes along with New Year's. And already half of the month is gone. Before you know it, Valentine's Day will be here, and then after Valentine's Day, we'll be into March with St. Patrick's Day, and before you know it, we'll be into Easter, and before you know it, it'll be 4th of July and Memorial Day, and all the time is sailing. I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but going back to January 14th. Life will work for me when I realize the only problem I have is the belief that I am not doing the right thing. I've got a question for you. How can you evaluate the process when you don't really know what the process is or how it works? Many of us believe that we are not doing life right, or that things are going wrong in our lives when we have absolutely no idea what the process is or how it really works. Yes, we all have some basic ideas of what to do and what not to do. Many of us know what we want. Some of us even believe that we know how we can get what we want. What few of us know with an absolute certainty is whether or not what we believe about the process is the truth about the process. The process of life is ever unfolding. Oh boy, this is my commentary again. Oh man, is it? Guiding you, pushing you, preparing you for the next part of the process. Life often takes a twist. Again, this is my commentary. Oh man, does it? Who can it twist? Or makes a turn that is frightening or confusing. Boy, confusing is not the word. Difficult challenges, bad days, upset feelings, moments of confusion are part of life's process. Perhaps these things are there to keep us alert, to make us stronger, or to test our resolve to keep moving forward. Perhaps they are not a sign that we are wrong, that we are failing or that our life is about to fall apart. The only way we can know for sure is to be willing to walk through every part of the process. The good and the not so good. The easy part and the hard parts. Perhaps if we stop trying to figure out the process would proceed exactly as it should. Until today, you may have believed that you were doing something wrong in life, or that something was wrong with the process of life. Just for today, be devoted to embracing the process of life without fear by reminding yourself that you really don't know what the process is. But you are equipped to handle whatever shows up. Now, I'm a wordsmith. I'm a former language arts teacher. For that matter, I still teach language arts. And I do know this, that anything goes before the word but. Once you say the word but, and I'm talking about one T, not two, B-U-T. Once you say the word but, everything before it gets wiped out. So if I read that line again, it says, just for today, be devoted to embracing the process of life without fear by reminding yourself that you really don't know what the process is. Here's the key word here. But you are equipped to handle whatever shows up. Today, I am in the process of learning more about the process of living. That's from Until Today, Daily Devotions for Spiritual Growth and Peace of Mind. The author of that book is Iyanla Vanzant. You know, I open up every week with Courtney Wilson's great work. And now I'm closing with Brian Courtney Wilson with Always Peace. I love that song. I honestly do. As Saturday mornings, as I'm listening to it and we're opening up, and I just constantly listen to the words. I hear the chords, I hear the melody, but I'm listening in that song to his words. And I constantly refer to that line. And you all know, our mothers' mothers and our fathers' fathers, they planted seeds when we were nothing but a faint notion in their mind. The work is not about us, because that's what he says in the song. The work is bigger than us. And he says those words, go be great, that I told you, that's what I used as our slogan at my particular school. Where I'm going with this particular story is, yesterday I had an issue with a student. And interesting, as I read Iyanla's entry for today, what was coming to my mind was, depending on what role you play, if you're the boss or the commander-in-chief or the one who makes final decision, in some crazy respects, and this is not being blasphemous, I'm not being disrespectful, but in some respects, you almost get an opportunity to play God. Had a situation yesterday, student did something that he'd been told not to do multiple times, had gotten multiple chances. And yet, he still did the same infraction again for like the umpteenth time. So finally, I levied the suspension. This child cried, he begged, he pleaded, he tried to bribe, he threw himself on the floor, he yelled, he kicked, he screamed, please don't suspend me, please, anything else but a suspension. I'll take a detention. You can take this away from me. I'll give you this. And I'll be talking about the drama. I said, you know what? If you were applying or if you were in a movie, you would certainly get the Academy Award for Best Actor. And he just carried on. He really did. From 10 after 12 till about 1 o'clock. But where I'm going with that is not so much the focus on that. But when his mother came and we talked, because the mother, she said she took the suspension. Of course she wasn't happy, because I had told him, I said, you know what? Back to Iyanla's story. It's not the end of the world. You will survive this. You will live. Is your mother going to be mad? Yes, she is, because if you were my child and I got a call saying that my child was suspended, I would be mad too. But she's not going to kill you. You will survive. The same thing that Iyanla was saying in that reading, that whatever life throws at you, you will survive it. You will make it. You will go through it. You're not going to like it. It's not going to always be good. It's sometimes going to be bad. And when I was talking about the opportunity to play God is because no matter how much that child cried and begged and pleaded, I held firm and said, no, you're getting those days. You're getting those days. Now, I was actually playing God because I could have said, changed my mind. I could have rescinded, but he had been given chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. So I needed him to learn a lesson because, I won't do it again. I'll do anything. I said, I know you are, because after you get those 3 days and you come back, you're going to remember. When you come back from those 3 days, you're going to have some time to think. And I know you're not going to do it again, because every time you think about doing it again, you're going to think about them 3 days. You're going to think about this fit that you had whenever I told you you were getting those days. Oh, he was sitting in my office. I was literally typing up the suspension letter. And when the letter came off of the printer, he really had a fit. Because he knows, please tear it up. No, I'm not tearing it up. I had a chance to play God. Like, no, I'm not. Sometimes God does that to us. Sometimes, no matter how much we're begging and pleading for God to take that off of us, he doesn't. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to go through that. You're going to have to deal with, in this particular case for this child, the 3-day suspension. You're going to get this suspension because you refused to follow the directions. Because you refused to follow the directive you've been given, and you've been given multiple chances, now we had to take it up a notch. So no matter how much he begged, he cried, he asked for mercy. Oh my God, this child threw a fit. I thought he was going to go into convulsions. I really did. I thought he was going to go into convulsions. He begged, he pleaded, he begged, he pleaded, he cried, he begged, he pleaded. But I didn't change my mind. He got his 3 days. Now, there's a flip side to that as well. And the flip side is this. Oh, one more thing before I get to the flip side. What the mother said in the conversation, going back to Brian Courtney Wilson's song, she says, what do I tell you every morning when I drop you off? And he mumbled out, go be great. She asked him again, what do I tell you every morning when I drop you off? He said, go be great. And she said, was that being great? Is what you did being great? He said, no. She said, I tell you every morning to go be great, and your decision that you made was not being great. Where I'm going with this is that slogan, that tagline came from that song, from Great Work, to the point wherein now a parent is saying every morning, that's the last word she say to her son, is go be great. So when we're talking about impacting lives, we never know. You heard Letitia in her reading talk about word choice. We never know how we're impacting lives with the gestures and what we do. I had no idea whenever I decided to make Go Be Great our slogan, our motto, that it would infiltrate or get to the point where I'd be sitting there listening to a parent say, what do I tell you every morning when you get out the car? Go be great. And then to be able to use the slogan to ask the question, was that being great? He had to say no. Where I was going when I said the flip side, which is going to lead me into my next topic. I sat there, and trust me when I tell you, my heart did go out to that child as he was begging and pleading and trying to bribe me and falling all over and crying. My heart did go out to him. It did. I had to play the role of being the tough guy. I had to stand firm. But my heart did go out to him as he was crying and begging and pleading for mercy. And where I'm going with this is this Keenan Anderson story and so many other stories like Keenan's now, because he's one of the most recent ones, of somebody begging and pleading for their life. And yet you can continue with the activities that is taking their life. I don't know how many of you have seen the video of it. I saw the video of it very quickly yesterday of this whole interaction between Mr. Anderson and the Los Angeles police. You can hear him saying, please. You can hear him saying, you guys are pulling a George Floyd on me. You can hear him saying, I'm not resisting. You can hear him saying these things on the video because they had the body cam on. Obviously, all these cameras aren't doing a darn thing. They're not doing a doggone thing because people are still doing what they want to do, regardless if cameras are involved or not. You can hear him say, please, I am not ready. Please, please, please. And you can hear the officer say, I'm going to tase him. And he kept tasing. He didn't tase him once. Now, this is what I don't understand. How do you expect somebody's body who is taking a tase jolt not to respond or react? How do you see? That doesn't make sense because you're putting the jolt into him with the taser gun, and every time he moves, you say, stop resisting. That's what was going on in the video, if you see it. So now I've pulled up the article, and that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about. I'm going to actually read the article like I do in some instances with you. It says, and this is from CNN, a 31-year-old father and English teacher died from cardiac arrest last week after he was repeatedly tased by police, according to the Los Angeles Police Department, marking the third officer-involved death in the city this year. Now, mind you, we're only 15 days in, and they've already had 3 officer-involved deaths in Los Angeles already. Police encountered Keenan Anderson. Now, this is the ironic piece. This is why I know there's a God, too, because every now and again, God does something that really kind of like gets our attention or alerts us. Keenan Anderson is the cousin of Black Lives Matter co-founder Patrisse Cullors. On January 3rd, at the site of a traffic collision in Los Angeles, Venice neighborhood, police said in a news release last week. As police struggled to arrest Anderson, they tased him repeatedly. Edited body-worn camera footage released by police shows. After being arrested, Anderson was brought to a local hospital where he went into cardiac arrest and was pronounced dead, according to police. I'm reading straight from CNN. Cullors said in an Instagram tribute post that her cousin was, quote, killed by LAPD, unquote. Quote, Keenan deserves to be alive now. His child deserves to be raised by his father, Cullors wrote in the post. Quote, Keenan, we will fight for you and for all our loved ones impacted by state violence. I love you, unquote. Anderson taught 10th grade English at Digital Pioneers Academy in Washington, D.C., according to a statement from the school's founder, Mashea Ashton. Anderson was visiting family in Los Angeles over winter break, Ashton said. Quote, the details of his death are disturbing as they are tragic, unquote. Ashton said in the statement, adding, quote, Keenan was a deeply committed educator and father of a 6-year-old son. He was beloved by all, unquote. Quote, our community is grieving, but we're also angry. Angry that once again a known, loved, and respected member of our community is no longer with us. Angry that another talented, beautiful black soul is gone too soon, unquote, Ashton said. Detectives from the police department's Force Investigation Division responded to the scene where Anderson was taken into custody and are investigating the use of force, police said, explaining in the video that the department's policy defines any death of a person in their custody as a, quote, categorical, quote, or unquote, use of force. So far this year, Los Angeles police are investigating the police shooting deaths of Takar Smith, 45, and Oscar Sanchez, 35, and has released footage of those incidents. What the video shows. Police said, again, I'm reading from CNN. Police said they responded to a traffic collision the afternoon of January 3rd and saw Anderson, quote, running in the middle of the street and exhibiting erratic behavior, unquote. On one officer's body-worn camera, released and edited by police, keyword edited, a woman at the traffic collision site tells police, I think that guy up there needs help, though, because the guy's trying to run away, unquote. Body-worn camera video shows Anderson initially stopped and spoke to an officer before the video cuts to a text screen that says Anderson, quote, attempted to run away, unquote. When the video resumes, now mind you, it's edited. When the video resumes, Anderson is seen jogging into the street as the officer pursues him and stops him in a busy intersection, commanding Anderson to lay down on his stomach. Anderson does not appear to comply immediately, and two other officers arrive and move him to lie down prone on his stomach in the street, telling Anderson to, quote, relax, unquote. As officers struggle on top of him, Anderson can be heard screaming, help, quote, they're trying to kill me, unquote, and, quote, please don't do this, unquote. That's right, because I've seen the video. In footage from another responding officer, an officer can be heard repeatedly warning Anderson to stop resisting and turn over, and threatening several times to tase Anderson. Quote, they're trying to George Floyd me, unquote, says Anderson, as officers try to roll him on his stomach. Then an officer deploys a taser multiple times on Anderson, who says, quote, I'm not resisting, unquote. Officers eventually handcuff and place ankle hobbles on Anderson, the video shows. Later in the video, the Los Angeles Fire Department places Anderson, who appears conscious, onto a gurney near an ambulance. Police say in the news release that Anderson was given medical care at the scene by fire department personnel before being transported to a local hospital. Quote, while at the hospital, Anderson went into cardiac arrest and was pronounced deceased, unquote, the release says. Los Angeles Police Captain Kelly Muniz says in the video that Anderson died approximately 4.5 hours after the use of force. Preliminary toxicology blood screen of Anderson's blood samples tested positive for cocaine and marijuana, police said, adding the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office is expected to conduct their own independent toxicology tests. LAPD Chief Michael Moore said the videos are published in response to calls for release from families. This is not, again, to do anything other than to demonstrate our commitment to full transparency and to judge this on the merits of what the investigation shows us and to ask for the public's patience as we go about this engagement, he said at a news conference Wednesday. That is the end of the article. Now, see, already, and I'm not saying taking cocaine, well, marijuana is legal now in most places, but I'm not saying being on a drug, I'm not trying to justify that at all. However, they're already setting this up to try to start casting judgment on the victim. I don't care if he did have cocaine in him, he had to die. I don't care if he did have marijuana in him. It was no need for him to have to be dead because of it. Repeatedly tasing. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see the video or not, but repeatedly you could see the officer constantly jamming that tase gun in his back. Now he's on the ground, mind you, in handcuffs. I didn't realize they put ankle cuffs on him. Handcuffs and ankle cuffs, you're steady shooting, charging him in the back with a taser gun. He's steady telling you, I'm not resisting, and you're steady hitting him with the taser again. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. That I don't get. And I don't want to paint this broad brush of police officers because every police officer is not or does not practice their job in a bad manner. Just like I don't broad brush principals, I don't broad brush teachers, I don't broad brush garbage men, I don't broad brush doctors, I don't broad brush lawyers, because in every field, you're going to get some bad apples. But the bad apples are making it bad for everybody. The bad apples really are spoiling the baskets. They really are, because I don't understand. We are not learning from each case that goes. The fact that this man referenced, you all are George Floyding me. You're pulling a George Floyd on me. The fact that he's referencing that, and they're still going on tasing him just like, and this is somebody who's unarmed as far as I know. I don't think he had any arm on him. Only thing he was doing was running down the street. It's the only thing he was doing from what, just this report. Now, I don't know. There may be more. I don't want to pass judgment. But all I know is I don't think Mr. Anderson needed to be dead because of this. You had somebody, and going back to the story I said about the student, you had someone who was literally pleading for his life. And the police officer could care, or officers could care less. And this is one of the lessons that, as I constantly every day speak with my students, with every fiber of being in me, try to help them understand. Do not put yourself in the position, because once you're in the position that Mr. Anderson was in, things can go left very quickly. So the best thing to do is avoid being put in the position to begin with, so that things can't go left. What I share with my students all the time is, it's one thing to be sitting in the principal's office with me. It's another thing to be sitting in a courtroom in front of a judge. Because where me as the principal, I do love and care about you, when you get in front of the judge will not. The judge is doing his or her job. And as far as they're concerned, if you've broken the law and the book says you're supposed to get this, and that is why, in a sense, I took that hard line with the student with the suspension, because I needed him to feel, look, if you don't learn to start following directives at this level, you're not going to be sitting in front of me, the principal. You're going to be sitting in front of a judge, and he's not, or she's not, going to care how much you cry and spit, and you know what rhymes with spit and everything else. They're not going to care. They're not going to care how much your mama cry, your grandma cry, your daddy cry. They're not going to care about that. That does not faze them. They don't have a heart for that, because that's not what their job is about. So that kind of movement and crying and pleading and begging and don't give me 5 years and is not going to faze the judge. So I try to help my students understand, you need to get it and understand this. You're sitting in front of me, the principal, right now, that, yes, this is a training ground, and I'm trying to help you here understand this. But if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to find yourself either in a position dealing with the police, and when the police do say stop, you think you don't have to listen to authority, you're going to keep going, and then you're going to wind up in the same situation that we keep describing here. Because once the officers get into that he or she is resisting arrest mode, they kick it into a whole nother gear. They almost seem like they're into a stupor or a trance or something. Like they just can't take it down, because clearly this man was pleading and said, you're pulling a George Floyd on me. Please, please. I'm not resisting. Yet this man is dead today. Now, we don't know. It could have been the excitement. It could have been a combination of the drugs. It could have been the tase. It could have been all of that. But something stopped that man's heart. Something stopped that man's heart. And it could have been all of the above. It could have been A, B, C, D, all of the above. It could have been. And again, I don't know if the toxicology report is true or not. I don't know. It could have been the combination of the alleged cocaine and marijuana. It could have been the fact that he was running. Could have been the fact that he was scared. It could have been an anxiety attack. It could have been the tase. It could have been a whole lot of things that ultimately stopped that man's heart. Now, mind you, he was out there on winter break. Years ago, you had Trayvon Martin, who was visiting his father on break. Wasn't from that neighborhood. Wasn't from that area in Florida. And now you have this man who's from the other side of the country. Washington, D.C. gets killed on the West Coast in Los Angeles. It's in Washington, D.C., visiting folks in Los Angeles and winds up dead. That does not make a whole lot of sense to me. All right. While I have here, I do want to do a shout out. I need to find it very quickly. Let's see if I can find it. I want to do a shout out. But think about some of the things that I'm talking about here in terms of when things go left like that, there is no telling where it's going to go or how things are going to play out. That's why we have to be oh so careful at all times. Not to say that we're going to run around always looking over our shoulder, scared, trying to make something, because you don't want that either, because you can literally manifest the very thing that you're fearful of. That's why, if you look in the Bible, that's why Job says, the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. Fear attracts the very thing that you don't want. Fear can attract. So I'm not saying we have to walk around and be running around always fearful. That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, we do have to be cognizant of what's going on and what could happen. I'm always thinking in terms of the what could happen. Always have to think in that mode of, well, what could happen here? So, all right. My guest will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. This was the shout out I wanted to do. Actually, every now and again from time to time, I receive unsolicited feedback from a listener. Now, I know my loyal listeners who listen every Saturday morning, who call and text, but every now and again, I will get a message from someone I don't know. And this is what happened to me from a young man named Miguel. Young or old, I don't know it because I don't know him. I don't know how old he is. But he says, he sent me an email through my website, which is markamedley.com, by the way. If you go to markamedley.com, you can get in touch with me. But he sent me a message there. It says, "Hi, Mark. Just a quick note to thank you for your lucid insights on Saturday morning Reading Circle radio show. Has provided great inspiration and hope for me. Thank you, Miguel." Miguel, I don't know if you're listening this morning or not, but thank you so much for that, what we call unsolicited feedback. That means I didn't ask you to send it. I didn't ask anybody to say what Miguel just said. Miguel did that on his own. He sent it out. He sent it to me, letting me know how he feels about the show. Now, that can work both ways. Somebody could send you an email and say it's horrid. Okay, I'll take that too. But what he says is, again, "Hi, Mark. Just a quick note to thank you for your lucid insights on Saturday morning Reading Circle radio show. It has provided great inspiration and hope for me. Thank you, Miguel." So, Miguel, thank you for the feedback, because that is why I do what I do on Saturday mornings. And I hope even when we're talking about things like this Keenan Anderson story, that those are the lucid insights that you're referring to. Some of this stuff just does not make sense, folks. I'm sorry. These are lives that are being lost. This man, and this is, you all have no idea, first off, how badly in need of teachers that we are to begin with. COVID really took a serious hit in the industry of education in terms of us being able to provide staffing. In terms of us to be able to get teachers, and then in many instances, we want black men to be teachers because we have a whole lot of children of color who need to see men, who need to see people who look like them in front of them in classrooms, particularly men. So here we had an African-American male teacher who is now dead. So it's almost like no words. I have a 5th grade vacancy that I have not been able to fill in nearly 2 years now. This is, matter of fact, it's a year, because the vacancy was created last January, and I haven't been able to fill that 5th grade vacancy yet. I've had 3 folks who agreed to take the job and then turned around and reneged. They turned around and changed course. Nope, went through the paperwork, went through everything with HR or human capital or whatever they call themselves now, went through everything with them, and then turned around and said, "I've changed my mind. I've decided not to take the position." So the need for teachers countrywide, I don't know about worldwide, but I know in the United States, we are suffering in terms of trying to hire teachers. And then we start breaking it down into we really would love to have a black male teacher, or a Spanish male teacher, or an Arabic male teacher, or a Jewish male teacher, or whatever. When you start cutting it like that, we would like to have, because you want somebody in front of the kids that's reflective of them. So now we have an African-American male teacher, and he goes out on winter break and does not come back because his life is gone. Now, I know there's those out there, the cocaine in there. Well, that's what they say. We don't never know. So it's always mighty convenient that whoever gets killed either conveniently has a gun or always on some type of a drug. I'm not implying anything, and maybe I am. But it's just always mighty convenient. There are those that, and I'm one of those that people hate, conspiracy theorists. I really am. I really am. Because some of these, just the story that's told to us just does not add up, or it adds up and fits too perfectly. That's why you get those of us who are conspiracy theorists. It's like, wow, it's mighty convenient, mighty convenient, mighty convenient. All right.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Mark Medley Show. As I talked about the process of life. You can hear me live each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. on gobrave.org. That's GOBRAVE.org, where we web stream around the world. If you're in the northern New Jersey, New York area, you can catch me on FM radio 88.7 FM. So I invite you to join me on Saturday mornings from 6 o'clock to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Whether you're anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country, you can catch the show on gobrave.org. And again, in northern New Jersey and the metropolitan area in New York, it is on 88.7 FM. I also invite you to visit my website, markamedley.com. That's markamedley.com. And if you go there, that is the portal. That is the entrance to all of my social media sites. That is the entrance, the portal, where you can leave me a message. You can message me. You can follow me on all of my sites. You can connect with me. You can friend me. But if you go to markamedley.com and go through the various tabs, you have the opportunity to connect with me on so many different ways. It also lets you know where this podcast can be heard on so many different podcast platforms. You have a choice. And speaking of choices, I thank you so much for listening this far. If you've gotten to this point, you've listened this far, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much, because there are so many other podcasts and platforms that you could be listening to, yet you chose to listen to The Mark Medley Show, at least for this episode. I encourage you to always listen to the latest episodes as they come out. And again, you can find that out by going to markamedley.com or any of your podcast platforms and put in The Mark Medley Show or The Mark Medley Show tracks. Again, I thank you for listening to this latest episode of The Mark Medley Show.